Okay, hey everyone. This is the first video for the week of March the 30th. This video takes the place of a class, obviously, so I expect you to watch it, and any that are posted throughout the week. You'll see the discussion board will be open soon, if not already by the time you're watching this, for this week. Today, what we would do in class normally, like we would do for each of our assignments, is go over the assignment sheet itself, the prompt. I would hand them out and we'd go over it because during the discussion, during the explanation, everyone's clear and things pop up to talk about. So I want to do that. As boring as it might sound, this video is pretty much going to be reading through the prompt of the ethnographic essay. We will do other activities and exercises and readings as we always do, models, examples, etc. There will be assignments that you need to do this week. So please, while you're either listening or watching or however you are consuming this video, please print out and read through the prompt for this essay no matter what, because these are the clear, specific instructions which seem to have been, there's been some trickiness with people in terms of doing this correctly. Also, please remember that your papers are to be turned in through the system on Canvas, going to assignments and uploading them that way. When you do that, I can see it, I can make comments, I can make notes and grade it just like that, and you'll see the grade pop back up. So if you have not already turned in your argumentative paper, please do it. It's not turned in unless I can open it. Also, there are a lot of corrupted files for some reason, meaning I can't open the file. So please upload an appropriate file, something that will work in the system. Double check yourself. There are a few like that. That are not coming through the Canvas system appropriately. And I obviously need to be able to open it and read it. So here we go. We're going to go over the prompt for the ethnographic essay. You'll find it now live on the front page of our Canvas site. Please print it out or open it and read it. Go along with me, whatever you might want to do. But important information will come out as we're talking about it, so please listen. Okay. Specifics, the first thing you'll see on the page is this is an ethnographic essay and it needs to be 1,000 to 1,300 words. You can go a little bit under. I'm sorry, you can go a little bit over. You can't go under at all. 1,000 to 1,300 words between those. I want to talk about what an ethnography is for a second, because it's a word I didn't even know that much until I started writing these and reading them. But you actually see them everywhere. So many of you guys have probably written profile essays in other classes in 101 or in high school, whenever it might be. You may have written a profile. And a profile is like an intense study of one person, who they are, how they act, how they interact, how they affect society, how they change important things around us, and what their relevance is. That's pretty much what we're doing now with an ethnography, except an ethnography expands it to a group of people, an identifying group of people. Often, as we see, especially right now in the world, groups identify themselves, identify as a group with a specific goal, message, mission, and meaning. People identify themselves as part of that group. We see this throughout politics, throughout normal society, in innocent ways and super consequential ways. An example I'll probably use over and over again as we talk about this is, because I'm fascinated by this, is it like a group of cosplaying Quidditch players on Tulane's campus. That would be a group of people that identify as a specific thing. I am a Quidditch player. I play on Tulane's campus. This is what I am. I am a Quidditch player. There's other people that say identify as a political movement. I am a let's say Tea Party conservative. I identify with I'm a Tea Party conservative. Let me tell you what my principles are, and the group of people I'm in all share the same principles. I'm an evangelical Christian. Uh, Let me tell you what that means to me and to my group of people and the people that I'm involved with in that. I am a competitive bowler with the National Bowling Association. I'm an advocate the for Americans with disabilities. These are all groups that people choose to identify themselves with. We'll go over more examples of groups, but you need to start thinking and getting an idea of what groups are and what they mean. So here's some guidelines. I'm just going to read off the page here for a little bit because I want you to read with me. According to Bruce Ballinger, who is a guy who wrote another textbook, and I'm going to assign some readings of his about ethnographies, he says, an ethnography tends to focus on a people who, at least when pressed, freely identify with a specific group. So people who admittedly identify with a group. Not someone who has to go, oh, okay, I'm a human. No. A group. They choose to be a part of a group. Okay. For this assignment, you will choose a specific group of people who are united by either age, ethnicity, hobby, experience, etc. There's some unifying purpose that brings them together. Quidditch players on Tulane's campus might identify as a certain group because they're trying to say, we want to keep the spirit of mythical creatures alive. Or they might say, we actually believe that we are mythical creatures. Whatever it is, they identify together around some core principle or purpose. So, they're usually united by age, ethnicity, occupation, hobbies, and interests, experiences, past, maybe like members of an AA group, members of Alcoholics Anonymous. They're shaped by their experiences, and that's very much a group of people, self-identifying people. I am a member of Alcohol Anonymous is a way of saying I am a part of a group that's shaped by our experiences together. Okay, your essay will answer the following 3 questions, very specifically, and among many others. Here are the 3 questions. What is the history of this subculture? So let's say, again, we're talking about the Quidditch players on Tulane's campus. How long have they done this? Was it 20 years ago when the books first came out? Was it when the movies came out? Was it when they just came? Did it start 5 years ago? The history of something and when it begins, just like in an argumentative paper, adds context and importance. It makes the reader ask, well, why is it more important that it's happening here or happening at this point in time? If it's a social movement, of course that would make a lot of sense. Because let's say someone says they're a member of the civil rights movement and they base it on, and they want to explain, oh, this started in the 60s, but a lot of those problems, like this, and this, are happening right now again. And that's why it's important to know when they started. You have to explain your history always. Let me throw in the disclaimer I always throw in when I say talk about history. This is not going to be a history paper. You don't write the history of a group or the history of an issue or the history of a person. History is just one aspect of it. So here's another question. How does this group subculture present themselves to the world? How are they choosing to show themselves? You can say Quidditch players wear the outfits specific to the books, or wear name tags that say I am a Quidditch player, or walk around the food court at the mall wearing a hat that says I am a Harry Potter Quidditch player from team number 1, or whatever it is. How do they show this? How do they let it be known to the world? Do they hide it? Are there groups of people online that want to hide who they are in reality but show themselves online? This act of showing who you are and showing how you identify with the group is essential to understanding how the group works. Again, how someone portrays themselves in a group of people is important to understand how that group works. Again, this is another way of using the idea of the typical to the global. We all know what that is right now. The typical means the ordinary thing expanding to a global meaning. So it's kind of what we're doing with the people we're talking about. We're going to highlight a couple of people or a person specifically to bring it to a broader group of people. We are pretty much going to generalize in the appropriate ways, which we'll learn about. Okay, and the third question is, how are they affected by the world at large? So we have, what's the history? What is this? How does this group or subculture present themselves to the world? And how are they affected by the world? Okay, so what obstacles do they face by presenting themselves to the world? Do people think they're childish idiots for playing Quidditch on the lawn at Tulane? Maybe. That's important to know. Are they prosecuted by the authorities for staying on the pitch too late? I don't know what that might even mean. But are they? Is this group of people persecuted by another group of people? Are there legal issues with this group? This is found everywhere. How does the world perceive them, and what does that mean? If I were to say, now this would be too vague of a topic, but if someone were to say, I am a community college student, and you're doing your ethnography on a community college student, students of a community college. Let's say that's your topic, that's your group you're writing about, which is too vague. Let me just say that again. But if that's the case, then you would need to know. How they are perceived by other people, and there's a stupid, horrible, awful, dumb stigma attached a lot of times to community college students, saying that they're not as capable as others to go to universities, or they're not equipped with the right knowledge, which is garbage. I went to 2 different community colleges in my life. I fully believe in the community college system. I'm just saying that it's important to see that people can be viewed this way, or that certain people are viewed this way. This can happen from race, religion, creed, anything. And so it's important to see, and then to illustrate to a reader in your paper how a group might be seen positively or negatively, and how that affects the group. How does the group respond in turn? So think about these things. As you consider these questions, you may also want to ask yourself, what draws these people together? Okay, what draws it? Does a love for Harry Potter make them there? Does a love to does a certain political group join together every Wednesday because they want the world to be fundamentally different? Do people at AA meet together because they want a common goal? What is it? What draws these people together? That's important. It needs to be in your papers. It needs to be in any ethnography. Another thing you can ask is, what kind of quote-unquote texts do they produce? Texts meaning, what artifacts, what do they make and present to the world that are, it can either be text, it can be, like, do they make social media posts? Do they make posters and pamphlets and put them around? Do they make radio announcements? Do they have TV commercials? Do they protest in the street with signs? What texts and ways of communication do they have? These are key and crucial because you can see how important it might be. Do they have secret online forums where you have to have a password to get in? All of these details and all of these ways of communication are so important to understanding how a group operates, which lends itself to all the questions we've talked about before. A culture's text can come in many different forms: written word, spoken word. Are there meetings where people speak, recite poetry? All this stuff happens and defines groups. Outfits. What outfits do they wear? I mean, if there's a group of Catholic priests, they might all wear the same little white thing shirts or whatever they're called. If it's nuns, they might wear habits. If it's I don't know why I'm stuck on religion right now, but if it's let's say a bowling group here in New Orleans who wears pink all the time because their main goal is bowling for breast cancer. I don't know. Try to think of something. But outfits are important. Traditions, very important. What do they do? Like what rituals do they have? What traditions that every time this group meets, do they light like a candle and pass it around? Every time this group meets, do they do a secret handshake? Every time this group meets or speaks to each other, do they use symbols to communicate? Do they sing songs? Do they speak in Pig Latin, etc., etc.? What traditions do they have? Maybe I said my family meets for a family reunion every year in Florida or whatever, and we go and we play 20 games of volleyball before we say a word to each other. That's bizarre, but that could be a tradition. What traditions does this group have? Because again, a tradition can help you understand what a group does and who they are in the larger context of society. A culture's text comes in many forms. It is also helpful to think about the group's environment. Where do they live, work, and play? So this is something that is often forgotten and something that's very important to remember. The environment of your group. If your environment is bowling for a group, bowling for breast cancer, a bunch of bowlers who try to get money for breast cancer patients or people at risk for breast cancer, and they do this on the moon, that's an incredibly important information to have. The environment in which they operate is important. That's why bowling for breast cancer members in New Orleans could have important context with what's going on in New Orleans that makes them want to do this. In America is even as another one. In like where do they do this? I mean, obviously they might be in a bowling alley, but what if they're not? What if they're playing? What if they're bowling outside for some reason? The environment in which they're in says a lot about them. Protesters would obviously usually be outside of governmental offices or wherever decisions might be made. Let's college age Quidditch players would usually be on the ground area of a university. The area in which they're in obviously is important, like we've been saying, and we'll see in the models. Where do they live, work, and play? Also, where do the individuals work usually? Do they typically have some sort of job? Do they typically Are they typically 45? Are they typically middle-aged white guys who live with their mom? Etc., etc. We have to generalize a bit before we can bring it back down to specifics. This essay will combine personal observation, known as field research. Field research is an important aspect of this paper. It's going to be a little different now that we're all kind of trapped inside. But it's still called field research, meaning seeing with our own observation how this group operates. So let's say you must choose a group. Well, let's say this will combine personal observation with formalized online research. Pause there and say, next week will be the week we go over how to find sources and cite them, put them in text, and put them in our works cited. We'll nail it down perfectly. Let me pause here for a second and talk about one more thing. A lot of the papers turned in are still not in MLA format. That is the easiest aspect of this class. Please do that. All right, back to this. You must choose a group that someone you know is a part of or someone you can access easily and timely, especially with the situation we're in right now. As cool as it would be to get a group like an Aboriginal tribe in New Zealand, right now we might not have quick access to those people before our draft is due or before our paper is due. We have to find and locate a group that we know that we can contact, and this becomes even harder now that we're kind of locked in our places. So you need to start looking now. You need to start saying, and who identifies as this, and who identifies as this that I can speak to in some way. I need to be able to speak to this person. I need to have access to this person. Your personal observation will be supplemented by online research. This online research will enhance your understanding of the subculture, adding the insight of others to your own inquiries. We will talk about possible types of structures for your essays later, but make sure to keep referring to models assigned as readings and various other ethnographies you come across in the wild for guidance. Again, models will be our main tool of understanding how to structure these things. This is your paper after all. This is what you have to say. Make it count. Okay, so you are going to be shining a light on a group of people that you feel should be shown. Here are the very technical requirements. The paper needs to be 1,000 to 1,300 words. You cannot go under. You may go a tiny bit over. Your essay must contain an angle, either in the intro or where most effective, that summarizes the entire essay's main idea. This is where an ethnography gets tricky, and I choose to use the word angle, not thesis. But you can think about it as a thesis or a main idea. But I like the word angle here because you can picture, let's say you're a newspaper reporter and going, hey, I want to write a story on this group bowling for breast cancer in New Orleans. And the editor would say, well, what's your angle? Meaning, why? What are you trying to say? What is your interpretation? Why is it important to write about bowling for breast cancer, and what do you have to say by doing so? That's the key to all of these papers, and it's the key to this paper, which is your final, most heavily weighted paper, I think. So you need to. This is where analysis is more important than ever. So we need to emphasize that again. Analysis being your interpretation of data. You see a group doing something, and you're analyzing what it means, and then you're delivering that to the reader. Here is a group doing something. We can all see it. Look, I'm showing you this group is bowling, and they're called Bowling for Breast Cancer. But here's what I think it means, and why I think it's important, and what I think the consequences of it might be, and why I think it fits into society, and how I think this might evolve over time, etc., etc. Here's my analysis for you to read. Here it is. That's how you have to think of this. What is your angle? So I will write that, or I will type that, and I will highlight that idea many, many times for you. I will say, but what is your angle? I get you're writing about this group. That's an excellent idea. That's a great group. But what are you trying to say? Your angle. What are you trying to say? And I will ask that over and over again. So start asking yourself that right now. Angle. Paragraphs must also work with logical causality. That is to say, there needs to be a connection, an artful transition between each idea and paragraph. We should know causality by now. This idea makes this idea happen, etc., etc. Okay. You must include a minimum of 3 sources cited both in text and in the works cited. So we're going to start using works cited pages now. Again, I will show you how to do citations next week. So you need 1 online academic source from a library database. That means a peer-reviewed source from the library database here at Delgado. I will show you very clearly how to get onto the library database. That is not for this video. 1 online source, meaning just a general website, maybe a YouTube video, maybe a tweet from someone, because that's apparently something that you can use now, and that people find appropriate to say things over. You cannot use Wikipedia, because it can be manually manipulated and changed. It's not a peer-reviewed, solid source of information. Neither is, we'll start going how to find more valid sources again, but neither is joesbathtub.com, marklongjeansblog.com, stephanieshat.net.org.edu. They're probably not going to be reliable sources. And finally, 1 source from field research. which is to say an interview or an observation sheet. There is an interview guide. There's a field research guide already posted on the front page of our Canvas under readings and various material. One of that's going to become obsolete, I think. Your field research needs to be included in this paper, meaning what you've observed this group do. Now, usually, in a time where we're not all cramped into our own places and not allowed to leave, we would, for the sake of writing this paper, go and visit that group and write notes and try to see what they're doing, how they're interacting, the ways they speak, what are they wearing, etc., etc. Like if I were writing about the Quidditch players, I might try to go out there and talk to some of them and watch it and see what they're doing and construct a scene out of it maybe, and glean information that way. But probably most of you can't do that now unless it's through an online way, which if it's an online group or something, it's still possible to observe people in their environment doing these things. But mostly your research now, your field research now will be through an interview. So you have to find someone from this group you can talk to. And there's an interview guide posted on the front of Canvas, and we will go over in another class or in another video how to interview and what we're looking for from our ethnographic interview. So certain things to ask, what information to try to get from asking, etc., etc. So, quickly to go over the specific requirements. Again, 1,000 to 1,300 words. It needs an angle. You need 3 sources, one from an academic source from the database, one from just a regular online source that's still reliable, and one source from your field research, which will most likely be an interview. You have this paper. It's posted on the front of Canvas. Argumentative essay prompt. Very clearly, click on it, read through it again, watch this video again if you need to. Let's see what else I need to talk about. This is a lot like a profile. How does this affect society around us? Okay. This is, I'll just tell you what you need to do after this video. Once you've watched this video, you all now know you have specific assignments. Okay, like we're in class now, let me assign those to you. You need to read and be able to respond to the reading that's posted on the front of Canvas called ethnography reading. It says ethnography reading. So please, let me double check that right now because I'm on Canvas and I can see. Ethnography reading. So read that. It's a section from another textbook. So you'll see it's a couple pages long. It's not long to read. It's a few pages. Please read that. And you can use that to respond to the discussion board, or you can use what I just talked about, anything I just talked about for the discussion board. But you need to read ethnography reading, which is posted on the front page of Canvas. That's your first reading for this assignment. Yeah, and we'll go over more discussion board stuff in the next video. I know there's some confusion about the discussion board, as I was expecting, as we all should expect. I'm still keeping it loose right now, but remember that you can post at any time during the week on the discussion board a 100-word response to anything said or read that week. Then you need to respond to another student's response by Friday of that week at midnight. You can do it Monday, you can do it Tuesday, you can do it Wednesday, etc., etc. It just has to be in by Friday. You can wait, you can get on it early, you can do whatever, but it just needs to be done by Friday at midnight. Okay, the next video we'll go over. The next video we'll talk a bit about the reading I just assigned, which is ethnography reading on the front page of Canvas. And we will talk more about the specifics of what an ethnography does and how it breaks down groups of people. This was a big overview, so please watch, rewatch, go through, or just bury it in here as hard as you can. Alright guys, I will see you in the next video. Please do the read.